we have an absolutely wonderful speaker this morning. I'm not going to get into, I'll let him explain it. But anyway, welcome everybody. David Pennington, as many of you know, is the former mayor of Dalton, Georgia. He did an absolutely remarkable turnaround in Dalton. A great example of a businessman that's put in charge of an elected office, an honest businessman, an astute, intelligent businessman, and he turned Dalton around. We just had an election with Donald Trump, an astute businessman, and we're seeing Rex Tillerson going through some policy issues regarding his background as a businessman and what he might be able to do if he's appointed Secretary of State. So, our political landscape is changing. It's not so much Republicans and Democrats. It's evolving. It's now globalists versus the nationalists. And the globalists are at state levels. They're at local levels. And we have a good idea who a lot of them are. I threw out a question to a gentleman I met with this morning who's maybe running for a senatorial seat in Georgia. And the question that I asked, because a lot of people don't have a real clear idea as we talk about nationalists versus globalists. What is a nationalist? And so I went and looked it up in my dictionary from my college, which is a good dictionary and current dictionaries. And essentially a nationalist is a citizen who believes that the government should work for them. What a strange concept. You know, that's the embodiment of our Constitution. So we hear in the news, they say, oh, he's just a nationalist. He's a nationalist. Well, yeah, okay. But nobody ever explains it when we're talking heads on TV to clarify it to the viewers. And a globalist is just the opposite. In this recent election, we found that the globalists are the Bushes, the Clintons, and the Obamas. And we had our suspicions about that, and we talked among ourselves, but now we know it's true. It's all come out in the open. When before we said so-and-so's a globalist, oh, you're a conspiracy. No, we now know that that's nonsense. So, I say all of this as a way of introduction to David Pennington, who a lot of us are politely twisting his arm to run for governor. Politely. Well, we may have to go to the old darkened back room, smoke-filled room. Nevertheless, David is a Madison Forum member. And I'm honored to introduce David again to our organization. You all well know him, David. Thank you very much.
This really is for me after I talk or whatever to show that there is a way to change America. And as Donald Trump says, make America great again. But I want to preface my remarks with this. In unison with a lot of our college campuses, this is not a safe zone. I may offend everybody in this room, so I'm warning you up front. If you're going to be offended, you may want to go ahead and leave. But I also would be remiss, how many people are in here live in Cobb County? I know some of you Cherokee, most of them are Cobb County. If we didn't thank y'all for what you've done for this country over the last couple of years, maybe you don't realize you've done this for the country. In this century, sports stadiums in America has cost the U.S. taxpayers about $3.9 billion in these federal bonds that have been issued. The places like Utah, who has no sports stadiums, have to pay their part of their federal income tax paying for that. Cobb County, y'all elected to do something stupid on your own. Thank y'all for not spreading it to the rest of us, whatever this crummy capitalist idea that sports stadiums.
We never elected.
It's a mandate. Well, exactly. But anyway, we thank y'all for doing that. And what I'm talking about today, really, the topic was how Trump and how that relates to how we're going to make America great again. And I really believe, the hats were cute and all that about making America great again. And I know you got some flack about that when the other candidate and other people, Obama included, say America's already great. Well, we really aren't. Now, are we better than everybody else in the world? There's no doubt about that. But in a world of shrubs, you don't have to be a very tall tree to stand out. That doesn't make you great. Now, we're in a country now, everything's great, everything's wonderful, everybody's a superstar. It's amazing, you know, how many, everybody's a superstar that scores a touchdown. You know, 30, 40 years ago, if you weren't Hank Aaron or Babe Ruth, you were not a superstar. Now we got thousands of superstars because everybody in this country gets a trophy.
That's right.
6 years old or whatever. But anyway, really to me, the operative thing that made Donald Trump the winner was, first of all, most of America understood that the fix is in. And the fix is in, everybody thinks just in the federal government. The fix is in state government, the fix is in Cobb County, in Dalton. And the reason the fix is in because the people who control all that have been allowed to control all that. You say you're a Republican, Republicans lined up and voted for whoever Republican is or was. You're a Democrat, you line up and you vote for whoever the Democrat is or was. So it's pretty easy to fix a system like that. Everybody knows what he means when the fix is in from the federal government standpoint. You were talking about globalism with this so-called free trade. Now I am a free trader. China's not a free trader. Japan's not a free trader. Korea's not a free trader. They took advantage of our so-called belief in free trade, and the people at the top, whether they be Goldman Sachs, whether it be J.P. Morgan, whether it be General Electric, you know, they're not free traders either. What they want, and the XM Bank's a good example of that, they want the fix in for them. And that's exactly what's happening. If you're Walmart, you want the fix in for them. And everybody understands that part of it. What I want to concentrate more on is at the state and local level where the fix is in. Because I'll assure you of this, we have a lot more influence on what happens in Atlanta or in Marietta or in Canton or in Dalton than we do in Washington, D.C. And Trump's whole method behind his madness will fail if we can't make Atlanta, Cobb County, Dalton great again or great for the first time. Because everything goes from the bottom up. And let's just look at our own state where the fix is in. And we've been told now for how many years we're the #1 state in America to do business. And if you say that long enough, and John and I had to go up Highway 5 whatever, and I said, here's one of the richest counties in Georgia, if not the richest. And look at all this for sale signs, all these rundown buildings in Cobb County. We're expecting in Dalton. We got a lot of rundown buildings in Dalton. You go to South Georgia, it's looking like a third world country. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if we're the #1 state in America to do business, how come the rest of America in this century is GDP's grown by over 30% and Georgia's grown by 15%? How come we rank 50th out of 51 states, including D.C., in median income growth? That's the #1 state in America to do business. But people keep saying over and over again, we must be. And let's look at one thing that we do in this state that everybody thinks must be making us rich, the movie industry. And the real problem with that movie industry, it's one thing which I'm not for, when you attract an industry or a company or whatever into a state and you abate their taxes that they would have paid if they were in the state, but if they weren't here, you wouldn't have collected the taxes either. But that's not what we're doing with the movie industry. They're taking Georgia businesses' profits, taxing our profits to give to them to invest up to 30% in their enterprises. You realize that? You're not abating their taxes. You're taking your tax money and giving it to a Hollywood studio, London studio, and they're writing them a check. They get 30% back in tax credits for everything they invest in their movies. And part of that 30% cost could be a $500,000 a year producer that lives in Hollywood. Doesn't even live here. Well, obviously, we're giving them so many tax credits, more than any other state in America, they can't use them all. However, they're allowed to sell them. And they are. 90 cents, 95%, GE, to whoever who would already be paying taxes here. They're buying those tax credits off their Georgia state income tax. So we talk about the fix is in Washington, D.C. The fix is in Atlanta, Georgia. Another place where the fix is in, we know we've got a very poorly educated population in Georgia. One of the poorest educated in the country. Our school systems, for the most part, rank in the bottom 10 in almost everything. And here we are in a state, our state leadership, they say over and over again, they're committed to STEM education, science, technology, engineering, manufacturing. We got to educate our Georgia kids to be competitive. And then we got, I'm going to pick up Leroy's institution, Georgia Tech. I read where Bud Peterson said we shoot for having up to 60% of our kids coming from Georgia. And when he said he's shooting for up to 60%, it means he's probably calling well under. And every day, every year, we have Georgia kids who've grown up in Georgia, their parents pay taxes in Georgia, who could do the work at Georgia Tech, turned away for a Chinese communist child because he's going to pay 3,000 tuition. But your leadership says we're into this STEM education. It's very, very important to Georgia. However, you can't go to our premier technical Georgia Tech because they need their 3,000 tuition to make sure their administration is paid $1 million a year, $600,000 a year, $400,000 a year, whatever it is. And in most cases, professors aren't getting these salaries. It's administration. You got administrators in Georgia, Georgia universities. They have one person under it. And not just to pick on Georgia Tech, I'll pick on the University of Georgia, my alma mater. We read last year they have this scandal where one of the VPs there basically stole money from the university. And they covered it up, kept paying her salary, telling her, you don't have to get another job. You can't stay here, but we're going to protect you until you get this job. Well, she ended up getting the job at the University of Louisville, making twice that amount of money. However, thank goodness, Channel 2 News, WSB does do some good. And they investigated, brought it to light. She lost her job there, but also the Attorney General, or then the Attorney General, decided he needed to prosecute this. Well, it turned out that the president of the University of Georgia knew this was going on, had covered it up for so long, he said, we can't even make a case against you. So you think the fix is just in Washington, D.C.? And is Barack Obama doing all this? Georgia Republicans doing this. And the University of Georgia, the last I looked, they have 31% space utilization rate over there, which is the lowest in the state, and they're still building. But we doubled tuition on Georgia kids over the last decade. And we're saying we need a better education system in Georgia. And if you want to take it closer to home, and I just brought it up earlier, the Brave Stadium. And we're calling that economic development. And the Cobb County taxpayers are building a brand new stadium for John Malone, who's really the CEO of Liberty Media, who owns the Atlanta Braves. He's worth, I think, $8 billion. And they're calling it economic development. Now, I'm not real sure how you move a stadium from one county to another county. The baseball players are already here. But basically, the stadium, the baseball players aside, are popcorn vendors, beer, ticket takers, or whatever the case may be. And I've seen Cobb County's median income. I don't think that's going to boost Cobb County's median income figures. And once again, they're saying it's not a tax increase. We had a tax that was going to roll off automatically. That y'all voted on to roll off automatically. And then another Republican decided, he had a better idea with y'all's money. Didn't want y'all, any of y'all's opinion on it, and got the Braves in Cobb County. Now, being from Dalton, if I ever go to another Braves game, I like that. I'd never paid for it or whatever. And it's closer for us to go to a Braves game in Marietta than it was in South Atlanta. So we appreciate that. I'm not real sure what the Cobb County citizens are going to get from this. And don't buy into this malarkey about all this development around the state, this retail development, things like that. Well, if you look at Georgia's income numbers and our GDP growth, all you're going to do is move that retail business from town center or somewhere else to the new Brave Stadium. It's not going to increase anything. So if you're waiting for the boom, sort of similar to the pork deepening or whatever, you're going to be waiting a long time because it's just not that easy. But if you look at what's happened across Georgia with these different things, Georgia is really now, once again, and we always have been, but really now, two states. You've got the metro Atlanta area, and you've got the rest of us in Georgia. And if you go, you don't have to go too far out of the Atlanta area to see a third world country. And what's happening in Georgia the last, particularly this century, about 82–83% of GDP growth has been in the metro area. Very little outside the metro area, including in Dalton, where the carpet industry is. You know, we've probably had negative GDP now for at least 10 years, if not 12 years. And when you see a state legislature at the governor's behest pass 2 large tax increases over the last 5 years, who that hammered the most was the poor areas of Georgia, particularly those of us that are bordering states like Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida. Tennessee and Florida have no state income tax. And I don't think it's coincidence that Tennessee's, who most of their revenues come from the sales tax. You know, their sales tax revenues last year grew about 5 times Georgia's. Our sales tax now in Georgia, the collections have been flat for 3 years, which is really the real economy because the consumer is about 70% of the economy. If your sales tax is flat, that means your economy is not doing very well at all. And the people that don't like my numbers, I understand that because I've got a lot of numbers. I said, just drive around. And not just drive around Dalton or Valdosta or Columbus. Go out South Colorado. I never thought I'd see today that Cobb County would look as poor as it's looking now. And you're one of the shining stars. So when it comes to making America great again, if you can't make your own counties, your own cities, your own states great again, Donald Trump's going to fail. And most people don't understand that. And, you know, we're locked in a battle at the moment in Dalton with both school systems, county government, and city governments. They're all broke. They're all increasing their taxes on people who have gotten far poorer over the last 10 years than what we were before. And that's no fun when you go to those meetings, because when you get involved in state politics or particularly national politics, you're probably not going to offend anybody. But when you get involved in your local politics, you're going to offend a whole lot of people. Maybe your school teacher neighbor, maybe your deputy sheriff neighbor, and maybe your city policeman neighbor. But if you can't control spending in your own backyard, don't waste time with Atlanta or Washington, D.C. because you're not going to do it. And most people do not want to get involved at the local level. But if you do that, I'll assure you, it flows uphill. It doesn't flow downhill. Because if you look at most of your politicians, where did they start? They started at some local office most of the time. And then if you want to look at how you wreck a state government, just look at what the Republicans have done. You can see a blueprint of how to wreck a state government as far as being able to deliver services. Because obviously there's always been some cronyism involved in the things like that. This administration is taking it to a whole new level. And once again, I'm going to pick on maybe one of y'all's friends, Sam Owens. In Dalton, we have a state school up there. We had an interim president for like 16 months. And at that same time, of the 20, I think at 33 schools, I think, there were 32 schools in the state university system. There were like 12 that had interim presidents. It took them forever to fill that position. And then suddenly the 3rd largest state university in Georgia comes available. And they pick the president, what, 30 days? 30 days. And, whatever the thing was. No other candidates that we know of. Now he might have been the best candidate. I have no idea. But you don't have a school that size. You don't have a national search. Now I wonder why they wanted him. Well, we had to get him out of the Attorney General's office to appoint once again another crony as the new Georgia Attorney General.
Unqualified crony is that.
It's the Georgia Constitution. Somebody mentioned the Constitution says that you got to have, I think, 7 or 8 years an active law license. He hadn't had an active law license in 7 or 9 years. But, not to worry, the governor said we checked with the Georgia Bar Association and they said he's qualified.
Right. Good place to go. Right.
What do you think that does to all the people doing the real work in state government when you do that? Those of us in private business, we know when we promote somebody above somebody else that's incompetent, it kills the whole organization. And you wonder why we can't get food stamp checks out on time? And you wonder why, 60-40 voted against the takeover of the schools? They realize we're in a state that runs one of the most dangerous prison systems in America. And now suddenly we want that same office to take over the school system. But this is where he was right. We're not running our own school systems.
Corporate America.
It's meant for local control. How much local control is there in the local school systems? How many people go to these school board meetings demanding things? Because the local people gave up the local control. We allowed this to happen, let the government do it. I don't have time, I don't have the inclination, or I don't want to make anybody mad. Well, Trump's not going to make America great again in the America that we see right now. Now, are we better than the rest of the world? No doubt about that. But look at the rest of the world. I remember having a heated discussion with one of my friends about 12 years ago about, he says China's going to take over America, will take over the world, their economy's so wonderful. And I said, yeah, they're doing real well right now. But as long as they keep the government they have, they're going to hit a wall. And guess what? They hit a wall. That's why oil prices have dropped like a rock. Not just because of fracking, because the Chinese demand's not there anymore. If you look at a lot of areas that have a lot of recycling, the prices for recycling have nosedived. Because once again, China's not buying all the recycled materials anymore. Japan, we're not going to have to worry about their competition by 2050 or 2060 because they're just going to disappear. They're getting so old, they're not letting anybody in the country, the birth rate's negative, they're just going to disappear. We know about the Western European problems, they already have enough problems as it was, and now with this wave of immigration, they've allowed to come in there with no plans what they're going to do with it. Germany's a good example. There are no competition whatsoever. So yeah, we can limp along and do very, very well compared to the rest of the world. But is that great? No, is that great? So the real question now is, as we found out in 2010, and I remember with the Tea Party way, Republicans took back the House, and once again I was having another discussion with a friend. He was part of it. He said, hey, everything's wonderful. Tea Party won at taking over the House. And I said, well, if I remember correctly, the Republicans had everything starting in 2002, the White House, both houses of Congress. How'd that work out? We ended up electing Barack Obama as president because of their favorites. And I'm asking, again, once again, Donald Trump, and number one, the first thing we've seen from Donald Trump, which I love because I am almost totally invested in the stock market. This has been a wonderful month. He hasn't done anything else. I love him at the moment for that. And then we were told that if he won, he was going to nosedive.
Right.
But all the investors realized, hey, deregulation, tax cuts, EPA hopefully will just disappear, which you won't, but obviously they're going to have serious handcuffs put on. And so they said this could be good. It could be really good. But it'll be a failure if the rest of America doesn't understand that they've got to stand up locally, state, with their own congressman. Tom Price has been appointed now to the HHS, but I thought, this is interesting. We'll see what happens in Georgia with that seat. I want to make sure I got these numbers correct. The three leading candidates are Beach, Hill, and Chuck Martin. Hill was in Dalton, when was that, John, like 2 months ago? Remember, he was on the tax committee.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about, once again, eliminating state income tax. We knew it was just politics. Yeah, they were going to do that. These are the same people that voted for budget increases, every year for the last 6 years, increased spending in the state by 50%, while they passed 2 of the largest tax increases in Georgia history funded. But they were once again politically run around the state acting like they're going to do something. But anyway, these three leading candidates have $1.3 million in campaign funds already in the bank. That's what makes them leading candidates. $1 million of it's coming from lobbyists.
Where?
Lobbyists.
You got a handle on
These three were in the paper. Martin's got 94% of his money came from lobbyists, and Beach 77% came from lobbyists. The fix is in. It's not just in Washington, D.C. It's in Atlanta, Georgia, Roswell, Georgia, Marietta, Georgia, where we're talking about. And if the people don't stand up and realize this is, once again, this is a real opportunity, as the 2010 Tea Party takeover was to Pittsburgh. This is once again a real opportunity for America truly to become great. But if we don't understand that, and the people don't understand that, and if all we do is come to meetings like this and meet with each other, as I told the Tea Party groups around Georgia when I ran for governor the last time, I said, what y'all do basically is, I'm not leaving y'all in particular, I have no idea what y'all do outside this one. Y'all come, sit around people that already agree with each other, It's you feel comfortable with each other, discuss what Bill O'Reilly said last night on Fox, and then go back home and watch Bill O'Reilly until the next meeting. And most people in the room nodded their head, yeah, you're exactly right. And who we owe this to, for the most part, and some of you are younger, I'm looking at some younger faces, but a lot of you are my age, whatever. We've had our run. We've had a heck of a run. Our kids and grandkids, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. They deserve better than this. Now, we also raised them to get the trophy too, so it's we're going to have to leave them a whole lot better thing than what we're leaving them at the moment, because they don't know how to compete. They don't know what tough really is. I don't really know what tough really is. But if you look at the best explanation I had about the greatest generation, and this made a lot of sense. First of all, the greatest generation was raised during the Depression. They had to learn how to work together to survive. My generation, we don't want to work together. We're individuals. By God, it's about us, period. I don't want to work with anybody. I want all I can get. They said when some of these men went to basic training and got their first breakfast, whatever, they were in heaven. I said, Lord, I've never had food like this. This is wonderful. And they're talking about going through basic training, how tough was it? He said, tough. I was shoveling hay on a Kansas farm for my father for nothing from daylight to dark. This is easy. They were raised to win World War II. We weren't. Our kids sure are. But when you read this thing that I've left with all of y'all, this is still, has the potential to be great again. And it's still the best country on earth. But it won't be this way forever. Right? Because I can assure you of this. The next financial crisis, we don't know when that is. If it's next week, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. Interest rates are already at zero. You remember when we had the last one, they cut interest rates to zero to survive. We had, ran $1 trillion deficits to survive. Now, there was a meeting up in Dalton with Congressman Rob Woodall. This man in Dalton brings these different congressmen not to raise money, whatever, just to introduce them to people from Dalton and all that. And everybody asked, for the most part, I think panel questions, make them look like they like it, the rest of it. And I said, do y'all have discussions up there about what happens if we go over the cliff, or when we go over the cliff? He said, yeah, we do. And I said, what's going to happen when we have that next financial crisis and we have to run $2.5 trillion deficits instead of $1.3 trillion deficits? And then we go to fund that debt, and the 10-year bond goes from whatever, 250 basis points to 400 basis points in one refund. He said, you talked about going over the cliff. I said, yeah. He said, well, we talk about, are we going to manage going over the cliff or just go over the cliff? And I said, that moonshiner went off the mountain. He wished he knew how to manage going over the cliff. And the people we have up there, the people we send from here to, that's what they talk about, political speak. They run day to day, week to week, the same way most of Americans do. And this is once again with Donald Trump winning, whether you're for him or against him. This is change. We're already seeing that. This is real change. We don't know if it's good change, bad change. As I said at the moment, I like the change because the stock market is rolling. But you look at the people that he's appointing, there's some of the same ones from Goldman Sachs and Goldman Sachs, but also a lot of totally refreshing new people out there. And at the moment, anybody that's not the same old people, I'm for. Qualified, unqualified, or whatever. Because we know the ones we got are not qualified.
Yeah.
They're qualified to look after themselves and the cronies around them. So believe me, the fix is in. All around you. Local, state. You're going to have a lot of elections coming up, a lot of people coming up, and also the ones that are already in there. They've been in there 8 years, 10 years, 6 years. Every Georgia Republican, except I can count on one hand, has voted to increase spending in this state by over 60% in the last 5 or 6 years. But they're going to come to groups like this and talk about limited government, less spending, and less taxes. Almost every Georgia Republican, except the ones you can count on one hand, voted for 2 of the largest tax increases in Georgia history. Every Georgia Republican has allowed certain appointments to state government because they're looking for their own. If you want to look at also from a standpoint, and when I'll pick on one from our area, Senator Butler. Nice guy. Appointed Senator Butler. But I can pick on some other names too. Appointed to the Court of Appeals. Charlie's never even practiced law, much less been a judge. But he was a good soldier for the government. And keep in mind, he was appointed to a seat. And all these Georgia Republicans, except the ones I can count on one hand, who voted for the budget, agreed to increase the Georgia Court of Appeals by 3 new judges and the Supreme Court by 2 new judges. These are limited government conservatives doing that. And instead of pandering when they come, you need to ask them hard questions. And whoever's running against them, if they have somebody running against them, I'll assure you of this with what I see the way Georgia's been run in the last 14 years. They're better. By God, at least they're different. But when you read this, you'll understand what our forefathers went through to create, not the best country on earth that can be made great again. And yeah, we've got different challenges they had, but believe me, it's a whole lot easier now than what they did then. If we're willing, once again, to work together as a country and understand we don't want to be Western Europe or whatever it is. Thank y'all for listening to me. Always good to be here.
Thank you.